All right, welcome to the podcast.
Welcome.
Jeremy and Andy talk movies, or the Take Two podcast, weighing our options here.
Could be either one.
I am your indiscreet, nondescript, you'd see me and forget me immediately host, Jeremy Mathias.
As usual, killing the dress and the outfit game.
You know, just feeling inspired is really what it is.
So I've done such a bad job having clothes that match the movie. I went with my Jimi Hendrix shirt today, just something that has nothing at all to do with the movie.
And you know what is always cool, though?
Oh, thank you. Jimmy's always cool.
You're not going to go wrong.
I'm not cool. Jimmy's cool, yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that's the thing these days. Wear shirts of old musicians. Although I think technically you're doing it wrong by knowing who it is.
That's true, yeah. If I was like a true young person, it's wearing a shirt of something or like a old TV show or something that they've never seen 1 second of.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So today we are talking about another new movie.
Yeah.
It's always our favorite thing to get to do on here.
Yeah, I'm excited.
A new movie that we're excited about. This is David Fincher's latest film, released directly to Netflix.
Yeah.
Which even I was sitting there watching it last night, I was going, it's convenient.
It is.
I was having restless leg, and I was like, that's kind of nice because I need to stand up and move around. But at the same time, I'm just going, I just wish I was in a theater.
It just doesn't feel right to me still. I think I'm just old enough. I of course lived in the pre-streaming era, and now I live in the streaming era, and it's just hard for me to let go of my old ways. I want these movies to be in theaters.
Yeah. It would... I don't know. Is it a movie that... I mean, it's definitely a visually compelling movie. So it's not like a big bombastic movie that you're like was made for theaters, but still, it's just.
I know.
It's just the experience.
I was thinking that though. I was thinking like I don't know that it would have been a hit in the theater.
Yeah.
I just don't know. I don't know what would have. I don't know. It's hard for me to tell as much anymore.
Well, we talked on a whole episode about the movie The Social Network, which is my favorite movie, which is a David Fincher directed movie. Yep. I don't really feel strongly about having a favorite director, but if someone like is pressing me, name a favorite director, I tend to say Fincher. Not even because his filmography is my favorite. I just know that I'm gonna love looking at a David Fincher movie.
Yeah.
I know that every shot is gonna be gorgeous.
Yeah.
And so when I hear a David Fincher movie, I'm automatically in.
Oh yeah, same.
And one of the things I liked about the lead up to this movie is that I was able to avoid seeing anything about it. Same. I went in knowing, literally all I knew is it's a David Fincher movie called The Killer and Michael Fassbender's in it. That's pretty much it.
That's all I knew as well. I never even watched a clip of it.
Same.
Yeah, never watched the trailer, nothing. So I really went in. This might be the most blind I've ever went into a movie ever.
Yeah, and man, it's really, I think, shocking almost when you do that to realize how much it impacts your viewing experience. Because as you're going like, I really have no idea what's in this movie.
No.
So I have no sense of like, well, I have, a lot of you realize how often in other movies you're going, well, we haven't seen that shot yet, or I know at some point they're going to be at this location because it was in the preview.
Oh yeah.
And without even thinking about it, it just informs so much of your viewing experience. And going in cold like this just sort of opens up the world of possibilities. Like literally anything can happen because I have no clues as to where it's going.
Yeah, so this is not a real hot take or anything, but trailers just give away way too much. And for years I've been telling myself to quit watching trailers, and then I don't. The temptation is you're just literally a click of the button away from a trailer. And when you're a movie guy like you and I are, usually we know we know Fincher's got a movie coming out sometimes years in advance. So when that trailer drops, sometimes it is literally years of anticipation for me. Killers of the Flower Moon's a good example. Yeah. I've known about that movie for like 4 years. So when that trailer dropped, it's years, and it's really hard for me to avoid clicking on it. But now, do you think, were you inspired to not want to watch trailers anymore?
I think I really am already at that point.
Oh, good.
It's just so hard to avoid.
It is.
Literally the only other time I can think of a movie that I was excited about without knowing anything and avoided everything for was War for the Planet of the Apes. Because I had seen the first two. I was like, when the third one was coming out, I was like, stop, you got me. I don't even need to see it. And somehow successfully avoided. I remember literally a couple times where a preview came on and I closed my eyes, covered my ears, and said, I'm going to avoid it. And I really think that affected how much I enjoyed that movie too.
Yeah. Side note, I was at the movies yesterday and I saw a trailer for the new Planet of the Apes movie coming out. And I didn't close my eyes and cover my ears. I was already in the theater. But it was a good trailer because you just get those shots of the apes and they look amazing now up on the screen. And I was like, okay, I'll go watch that movie. Yeah. And it didn't give anything away. So unrelated to anything. But.
Right. And we probably spent too much time talking around the movie, talking about its Netflix release, talking about trailer avoidance. But I wanted to have some content before I said, we're going to get into spoiler territory with the movie. Again, there's just no way to talk about this movie without being free just to talk about the things that happens in it.
Yep.
The good news is, people, if you want to watch it before we spoil anything, if you have Netflix, you can go watch it right this second. You can pause our podcast.
It's not long.
It's not long.
No.
Which is one of my first notes that I had was, maybe it's more telling about the nature of movies these days that I saw it's 2 hours long, and I thought, man, it's only 2 hours. What a breeze.
Right. After the 3.5 hour Killers of the Flower Moon.
3 hours Killers of the Flower Moon, 3 hour
2.5 hour Mission Impossible.
Yeah. Just 2 hours. I was like, man, Fincher, what are you slacking? You didn't want to give us more?
Right.
But
I just threw my pen.
It's just 2 hours, so you can pause it, go spend 2 hours watching it, and come back and listen to all the things we have to say. Now, that disclaimer's out of the way, we're going to talk about the movie, and we'll start just sort of big picture. Did you like the movie?
Loved it.
I figured that was the case because you had texted me and said, I gave you this as a homework assignment last week. I said, hey, The Killer's coming out, so we've got to both watch it, and then we'll podcast about it on Sunday. And you messaged me and said, I've done my assignment twice.
I guess I did spoil a little bit. Well, I think I would have watched it twice no matter what.
Yeah,
I really do. Even if I didn't love it on the first viewing, I think I would have watched it again, because when you do go in blind, you don't, like you said, the trailer, it almost gives you an idea of like, this is how I'm going to feel about this movie. I can tell, and it's up to the movie kind of to change my mind. But going into it blind, I think I needed the two viewings.
Yeah, I think it would have been helpful. I also really enjoyed this movie. I didn't get it. I was behind the scenes of my life, shocked how busy my weekend was. I didn't realize looking ahead how busy it was going to be, and finally late last night I was like, I can finally sit down and watch this movie that I need to, that I said we need to do before this weekend, and I've been wanting to. So when I sit down and watch it, I really enjoyed it, and then my immediate thought was, boy, Andy did it right, because I think I need another watch to process and think through this before we talk about it. But as we tend to do, we want kind of immediate shots, because we know in the podcast game, that sort of immediacy, people want to know about that new thing that came out. So
for sure,
we're all about the audience.
That's right.
Giving them what they want.
We're here for the people.
Yeah, we're not in this just for us.
No, we're thinking of the greater good.
That's right. So all the things that we're going to say right now, just like when we did Killers of the Flower Moon, just like when we did all the Oppenheimer, Mission Impossible, we reserve the right to feel differently a year from now.
Sure.
Several watches from
now.
There
is some danger of doing the immediate reaction.
Yeah, but I'm with you. I really enjoyed it. Of course, I already said I'm partial to Fincher movies. I'm immediately the way the movie looked, I'm like, this looks great. It looks distinctly Fincher. I don't know what it is with Fincher and his yellow tinting and nighttime lighting.
I know.
It's like I could see just a still of it and be like, that's Fincher. I can tell by that yellowish lighting tint, but I love it.
Yeah.
Like, I love the look of Fincher movies. It's not that all his shots are dark, because he's got daylight shots, and they're always very bright, and he's actually pretty colorful, but when he does nighttime, it's got that distinct hue.
It's awesome.
It's very Fincher, and it just sort of makes everything look more vibrant.
Yeah.
Somehow.
So even, like at the beginning of the movie, you're just seeing shots of the city, this little apartment that he's holed up in. And one thing I noticed he did a lot at the beginning of the movie was that overhead shot of the staircase going down. Even just that stuff, you're like, that just looks better than it would in somebody else's movie.
Yeah. My my overthinking it thing that I brought to this movie, just like we talked about in Killers of the Flower Moon, I overthink things, is there's a famous story of Matt Damon visiting the set of Gone Girl. I don't know if you've heard this story. I don't know
if I have or not.
And it was a scene, I think, in a library, and they're doing, take 20 or something of this scene.
Right.
And it gets done, and Damon's thinking, like, man, that was a really great take. Actually, I think it doesn't even get done. They're like mid the take, and Damon's thinking it's going well, and Fincher's just like, cut, stop. He's like, that person walking in the background, who walks like that? What real person walks like that? And so he made him reset the whole scene because he didn't like the way the person walked in the background. So when I'm watching a Fincher movie now, I can't help but look around at the background characters and just think, how are they moving?
How are they
look natural?
Are they walking correctly?
Yeah.
The way David Fincher thinks they should walk?
Things I wouldn't notice in any other movie, but because I know that's Fincher's level of specific attention to detail, I'm watching every little thing because I know he's going to make sure it's all right.
Yeah, he definitely has a reputation. Difficult, I would say. I mean, demanding.
Yeah.
He has a vision in his head, and he's going to execute it.
Yeah, and you're right. Difficult is probably accurate, but yet I've never heard him described like actors are never like.
I'm never working with that guy again.
It's more like that dude is on another level. He's a perfectionist. He knows everything.
Yeah.
Again, Gone Girl. There's another famous story of Ben Affleck went by a camera and adjusted.
I do know this
the
story.
Focus 1/1000th of a degree or something, and Fincher
noticed,
over, took one look and said, "Who messed with my camera?"
Yeah,
that sort of stuff. That I'm like, he is a we joke about being film nerds. He is what an actual film nerd is. He is, probably just a film genius and obsessive.
Yeah.
Who knows everything about everything when it comes
absolutely
to movies. Man, I feel like we're talking about everything again, still around.
But the movie, right?
So let's get actual plot of the movie.
Yeah.
The killer. I was kind of like, okay, obviously, the title kind of gives away something to expect about the movie. It's going to be about a guy who kills people.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know
serial killer.
Yes, I actually kind of was suspecting serial killer.
Honestly, I was kind of hoping.
And it's actually contract killer instead. People might be like, well, that's weird. Why is there a difference there? But, it's serial killer. You're driven by your own motives and stuff. The contract killer is
his profession.
Is exactly like, I'm detached from this entirely, which is sort of the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's really actually kind of the point of the movie, that he is saying the only reason he's good at this is because I can completely detach from all of this.
Repetition. And no empathy. He says these things. There's the whole movie's narration, which was interesting.
Exactly. The lines that he repeats over and over again. Anticipate, don't improvise.
Yeah.
Focus on the job you're being paid for.
Yep.
All those things that he just over and over again. His level of professionalism, basically, and it's kind of like, okay. So getting back to Fincher, this is one of the things I love about this movie. Just like we talked about with Nolan's Oppenheimer, where I feel like Nolan kind of relates to Oppenheimer in a way of like, Nolan's movies are like, can I do this? Can I make this big thing and, all the pieces and put the puzzle together?
Right.
And I'm not so much concerned with the implications of it as much as can I do it? Just like with Oppenheimer, can I build the bomb?
Right.
Fincher, this sounds morbid to say, I think he kind of relates to the contract killer in the fact of he's like, you have to just be deliberate. You have to be able to do the repetitions. You have to be the perfectionist about it. And Fincher's like, I'm that level of
this is me. This is me. Yeah.
People think of my work probably a serial killer, and they think excitement. He's like, no, what I am is methodical.
Yep.
I can deal with the boredom. I can deal with the rep because I'm going to get all the little details right. And you're going to see the final execution, but what you're not seeing is all the preparation and all the planning and all of that. And I think that's Fincher going I actually relate to this.
Oh, absolutely. And I later on in my notes, I wrote towards the end of the movie, I was kind of making notes in real time. And towards the end of the movie, one of my last notes was, I can see why Fincher was drawn to this movie.
Yeah.
Because of exactly what you're saying, just the process and the accuracy, not accuracy as he's sniping people, but just the accuracy in carrying out the job.
Yeah.
And the detail. So we're all over the place, but my favorite part of this movie was the details of, okay, once I've done a job, once I've completed my assignment, I dispose of everything. And how he does that, and it kind of looks like he's just, okay, I'm going to throw this in this garbage can, but it's planned out, and I just love that. I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
And I'm like you, I kind of had the same thoughts. Where it's like, this is where I connected Fincher with this movie. The details and the repetition, the matter-of-factness, all that stuff.
Yeah. But I think what makes this movie so interesting is that based on the character's internal monologue, his narration himself, he's not the smartest guy.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm just, a normal guy. The only thing that makes me able to do this again is my sort of commitment to detachment and not caring, and then the ability to handle the boredom.
Yeah.
But when it shows, like, he's a guy who makes mistakes. Some of the best moments are, okay, again, spoilers, when he approaches the lawyer guy who I guess started his career. We don't, first off, okay, it's so hard to talk about.
I know.
They show and don't tell so much. So as I'm trying to, like, explain, it's like, they don't explain, so it's just what we have to pick up on.
You're just thrown into this world with no backstory.
For a movie that has so much narration, there's not a lot of explanation. Because that narration is just sort of like him, again, what he's letting you know, the very basics, and him like coaching himself up basically. But it's not incredible detail.
No,
like
you don't even learn Fassbender's name.
No, and I was thinking about that. Apparently, he has a name because I saw it in the research. But I was like, I had in my notes, we don't know his name.
Don't know his name.
But one of my favorite moments is when he puts the nails in the guy.
Incredible.
And he falls down, and he's doing the incredible like knowledge of like, okay, based on his weight.
6 to 7 minutes. And he's a non-smoker.
Yeah, but then he looks down, and the guy's dying. He's like, crap.
I also wrote my notes. This is a dark comedy.
Yeah, which is actually surprisingly like what most of Fincher's stuff is, because as dark as he is, he's always like kind of laughing in the darkness. Like, there's
this one I thought maybe more so than any of his movies.
Yeah. But oh man, there's just so much to say. We talked about it with Killers of the Flower Moon. It's true in this one, that letting things breathe, the slow, deliberate pace. That first scene really does set it up nicely, where he's talking about like you have to be able to do the boring routine, because it just carries on for 10 minutes of boring routine building up to him.
Did you get restless during that part? Because I was like
a little bit. There was a moment where I was like, okay, is this gonna be like kind of the whole movie? Is this gonna be the
I wondered that.
Where
I did too.
The whole movie's building up to one kill or something, and it's gonna be, and then it didn't. There's a point where you think, okay, it's really going to pick up now, pace-wise, and it does a little bit, but it never really, like...
Completely
it's never loose. Full steam ahead. It's always very deliberate pacing.
So I thought it was really interesting how the movie... So, like, you turn on Netflix, you click on this movie, boom, credits, Killers, starring, blah, 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 and the credits just fly, and then it just comes to a grinding halt. Mm-hmm. And it's just him in this apartment... in the city, getting McDonald's, which was hilarious for some reason, eating McDonald's. And it was like, I got it. I understood what he was doing. It's like, okay, I think what he's doing is he's showing us just the mundane day-to-day. But I was kind of like you were. I was like, uh-oh, is this going to be the whole movie? Because, we talked about in Killers of the Flower Moon, neither one of us mind a slow movie. But I just was like, oh, I wonder if this is just going to be this movie. And it's going to be very slow and very about process and stuff. And then it does kick into gear a little bit.
It does. Again, because they show and don't tell, and there's really not... I mean, there's barely story to this.
Yeah.
But they show, he goes home after the botched job, which is... such a compelling sort of launching point of like, after all that, the 10-minute build up,
he screws it up,
and he's got the shot, and when he shoots,
kills the wrong person.
The lady steps in front, and it's just like his immediate like sort of, oh crap, what just happened?
But then it's like then he just starts packing up.
Yeah.
So I thought it was really interesting. Like, you don't even know who he's trying to kill, because like you said, there's not a lot of story in this movie. You have no idea who this is that he's after, that he's trying to shoot. so, you know, it was like, okay, like I get it. And then the assassination botch. And then one of the coolest things I thought, you know, he gets on his bike thingamajiggy, and it's almost like a chase scene, but they're not actually chasing him.
Right.
It was almost like his paranoia. Yeah, I felt
feel his anxiety.
I thought that was so well done, and I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
And then along the way, you're seeing him. There's an awesome shot where he was on that bike, and he drives right by like the garbage truck. Like he's going this way, the garbage, and he just chucks that stuff right in that garbage truck, and just never. And I was like, awesome. That was awesome.
Yeah. Again, it's a wild movie because you don't know anything. And he makes his comment at the beginning about like he'd be batting 1,000 if it weren't for the mafia guy who basically like I guess had a heart attack before he could kill him. I think is what he implies.
Yes.
So you're like, okay, maybe this guy's really good. But the only job we see him do at the beginning is he botches the job. You're like, okay, maybe he's not good. But then he like as he's going through the rest of the movie, you're like, okay, is this guy the best in the world? He's got a reputation that precedes him. He's got obviously made a ton of money. He's got storehouses all around the place. Like, okay, like as it goes, you're like, okay, no, this guy is like top of the line, incredible hitman.
But you see him screw up a lot in the movie.
Yeah.
That was interesting.
And again, it establishes from the beginning, you're not watching, you know, the most suave, capable guy in the world. Like he's just a guy who's pretty good at his job.
But makes mistakes.
Yeah, exactly. The scene, okay, so where I was going to go with that, he goes to his house in the Dominican Republic, and all you see is someone's been there. They've broken in. There's blood on the scene, and you're trying to piece together what's going on here.
What's going on?
Goes to a hospital. There's a girl there that's in the hospital, and you're like, okay, there's a connection here. Is that a love interest? Is that a family? Like, and it's very vague.
It is, but I was excited because I was like, oh, this is going to be a David Fincher revenge movie.
Yes. And
so at least at that point, you were like, okay, now I kind of have a grasp as to where this movie's going.
Yeah. And you're exactly right. Like, that's definitely like sort of the plot lift off, the launching point.
It
is.
Like,
this is where we're going. He's going, because he's talking to the brother, and he says, I can guarantee you that this will, you know, it doesn't say this will never happen. He says it in some way like this will never have a possibility happen again. He's basically saying like,
I'm going to go take care of this. I'm going to go
kill these guys. So it's literally not possible for them to do this again. And then you're like, okay, yeah, exactly. Like, okay, we're getting the dispassionate killer is going to become the passionate killer. But it still doesn't totally come that. It's Fincher's version of like, this guy's still very emotionally like detached, methodical. And it's, like you said, his version of that character's version of revenge.
Yeah.
Because he still does it very methodically.
He does.
Very tediously. Yep. Great scene of him with the muscle in Florida, the guy who was the muscle in Florida.
Yes.
Where he's going through the house and it's just sort of building tension, and then the guy just pops out of nowhere, and all of a sudden you're in this fight scene.
Oh my gosh, and what a fight scene.
And I was reminded, like, oh yeah, Fincher can do really cool action.
Oh my gosh, that was riveting.
It was.
And brutal.
And part of it was like, I think it's a great fight scene, but it also might just be like such a change of pace. Like everything has been like so like slow build,
cold
and then
calculated.
All of a sudden it is just intense. Like
it's like a UFC fight. Yeah. I mean, they are just going at it.
And yeah, what a thrilling scene in the movie. That was one I'm like, you know, even as I was watching it, I was like, I'm enjoying this, but it is so like kind of slow and deliberate. I'm like, I don't know if this is gonna be that rewatchable. And that scene came on, and I was like, okay, this is a scene that, that I'm gonna have to rewatch again for sure.
And it was like, it was shot, a lot of it was in the dark. And again, you get your dark comedy because like Fassbender, like he's looking around the kitchen and you're like, oh, he's gonna find a knife. No, he finds a cheese grater and he just kind of looks at it. I literally laughed out loud.
Yeah, and then he just, he's like, I guess all I can use this for is to throw it and run.
Yep,
so.
I just thought that was so funny, whether it was intended to be or not. And then before that too, just your great build up where he's like, okay, the average dog or the average whatever it is, a pit bull weighs this amount of pounds, and he's talking about how he's gonna get these dogs, and I was so into all that.
Yeah, but even then, like, it's so great because, you know, it shows him buying the meat and the drowsing medication or whatever, and he's talking about the dog's weight, but he never just lays it all out. Okay, I'm gonna put pills in the meat. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna throw it over and knock the dog out. literally you saw that, and then he's talking about the dog's weight as he's throwing meat over, and you just, as a viewer, it's trusting you to be smart enough to go,
yes.
I know exactly what he did. He put the pills in the meat, and you kind of like know even before he gets there, because we're smart viewers, and then we're just with him as he says, hopefully I get the right dosage.
Yep. And we've talked about that before, where we both like where movies don't hold your hand and, okay, now we're going to do this, and then we're going to, like you said, just trust that you can figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
But I'm like you. I was like, okay, this, by that point, that's probably about halfway through the movie, probably that big fight. Mm-hmm. And I'm exactly like you, where I just thought, okay, like this is just going to be that slower. And then it was just, boom, that guy just burst out of nowhere and the fight's on. And it was like, oh, they fought. And I'm like you, was like, okay, that's the scene. I'm going to be watching that scene again.
Yeah. So it goes from there. I mean, we're skipping some things.
Oh, we are. We're all over the place.
Yeah. There's it really just kind of happens in like long scenes.
It does.
It does in chapters.
Chapters.
There's a chapter where he goes to Tilda Swinton's character.
I love that part.
He meets her. This is definitely pretty soon we're going to talk about Fassbender and his job in this movie, because he did a great job. But like his character is very blank. And so you needed a scene like this where Tilda Swinton could kind of carry the load of a scene, and he could be blank, and it sort of plays off of each other.
Because she's doing a lot in that scene, and she's got all the drinks and all the excess and everything.
She's got to do all the talking because he's going to be quiet. You know that, like he's not going to overshare and overtip his hand. And, but there was a moment in that scene that I'm like, this is the sort of thing I need to rewatch again and kind of remember exactly what she said, because she makes the point that we're all thinking. She's like, I know you could still get away with what you need to get away with here, even if I yell and scream. You're still going to kill me.
Right.
She's like, but why are you risking this exposure? And she's like, it's because you wanted to sit across from me and see if you could like still do it, still be like detached, still like. And he doesn't even really respond.
He doesn't respond.
He kind of just stares. And I'm like, is that it? Is that right? Like, because I was thinking the same thing. Like, why'd you even go in there, guy? Like, why didn't you just wait for her to come out?
Yeah,
like,
you're literally sitting in a restaurant.
You've been methodical. Yeah, you're being seen right now, which is a thing you wouldn't normally do. You must have a reason. And it probably goes back to, again, that thing where, like, as much as he likes to think he's detached, this is a personal thing. And he wanted to, probably announce his presence and let her know, like, it's me. I'm here. I've tracked you down.
Yep. You're not as good as you think you are.
I'm not even afraid to sit across from you in this restaurant.
That was an amazing scene. And I found myself, the first time I watched it, is one of those scenes that when it ended and once he did kill her, I found myself like, I didn't realize I was tense during that scene, because I was like, I thought it may be one of those things where she's like right in the middle of the sentence and he just pulls out a gun and blasts her. So I was tense.
Yeah.
Which was like, I was like, that's how I know I'm in the hands of a good filmmaker and good actors, and I'm into this movie. I mean, even though that's at the end of the movie, I was like, oh, I'm in. Like, they got me. I'm invested because I was tense. Like, I know I'm 99% sure he's going to kill her. Yeah. Just when, how. And Fincher almost has, I think Tarantino's the master of it, but Fincher has it too, where because of his past movies, and he's not afraid to get violent and shocking and stuff, it is that whole thing of like, is he going to shoot her like under the table? All of a sudden, is there just going to be a loud gunshot, or is he just going to shoot her right in the head? Is he going to stab? All these possibilities. Right. Like, I know Fincher's not afraid to go there. Yeah. So is he going to? How's he going to? Is it going to make me jump? I was tense during that scene while being in awe of how good the scene was and the acting was.
Yeah, I honestly, talking about his willingness to do whatever was like. I didn't think it early in the movie, but once you get about past halfway, I was like, at this point, I can't even be surprised if Fassbender's character gets killed or something. Because he's just wanting to be so, like, real to, like, the process. And it's such a nihilistic, dark movie that I could see it pulling a No Country for Old Men and going...
halfway through
your protagonist, he's gone
He's
now.
dead.
It wouldn't have surprised me. Didn't do that, but... it wouldn't have surprised me. But I love that feeling in a movie of going like, anything is possible.
Anything's possible. Yes. It goes back to what I've always said, where the worst thing in the world is just a boring movie.
So maybe the most interesting, I guess we'll call it, decision in the movie is that the final bad guy he goes after, he doesn't kill.
Yeah.
Having said that, I say final bad guy, and perhaps it's, again, this is where rewatch and processing over time is, maybe we only view it that way as he's the main bad guy because he's the last guy in the line.
Right.
That's usually the movie formula is you build up to the last big bad.
Yep.
But I think in this movie, they're just trying to show, like, in order of how the dominoes would fall, he's the last character that he would get to. Yep. But he wasn't even the main guy that he was after because he doesn't view him as actually responsible for what happened. It's the people in between.
Yep.
And he already took care of them. He also explains in his very, like, practical way, the richer somebody is, the more cops seem to care about who kills them. And this guy's a billionaire, so he's basically like, this is a guy that, like, I can't just casually knock off because it will bring way more attention and heat than I want.
But it's that awesome thing of, like, I just want you to know if I need to, I can.
Exactly.
And that's why I'm here, just so you know how easily I can find you.
Yeah, so he shows up, scares the guy to, with that.
Yep.
With those lines, as he says, do we have a problem?
Oh my gosh.
And that guy very distinctly, like, I mean, obviously at that moment the guy's going to be like, no, but, like, you really get the sense as he goes, I just wanted you to know. I can do this again. And if I do it again, it's not gonna be an easy death for you.
Right.
It's gonna be something terrible. And the guy's like, I cannot emphasize enough, we do not have a problem.
Which goes back to my whole, like, dark comedy thing where it's like I'm laughing at this scene. Yeah, that was incredible. And that's why I think, when I said, like, when you meet you're saying in the hospital, which she doesn't get a name either, does she?
I don't believe she does.
I don't think she does. But like you said, you can tell it's like this is either a sister or a love interest, whether it be wife, girlfriend, or whatever. But that's why I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a revenge movie, and I'm so excited because I knew it's like we talked about like with Scorsese, with Nolan, these guys, where even if they make a movie that sounds like it's the formula, they're not going to follow the formula exactly because they're just too good and too smart. Yeah. So that's what it was like. I mean, I'm excited because this is a revenge movie, and revenge movies are typically pretty good. But most importantly, I'm excited is Fincher's version of a revenge movie.
Yeah. And there's so much, again, to digest here because Fassbender's character, it's again one of those exercises in how far will you go with the protagonist. We're going to introduce you through this world, through this guy. Mm-hmm. Audiences tend to connect just to whoever they're kind of introduced to the world through. Right. And then, so you want to root for him, but then as you're going, you're like, why am I rooting for this guy? He's terrible.
He's not a good
killer. Like when he's with other people in a scene, you're like, I know he's going to end up killing this person because that's his MO. That's what he has to do. Yeah. Again, the world that we're living in, his character is the type that he's not going to make the exception because he just can't. So the one lady, the secretary or whatever, like that whole build up.
Oh my gosh.
You're going like,
that was unbelievable.
As an audience member, you're going like, maybe he's actually gonna,
and then just
and he's
broken neck.
He's making the commentary in his head of you can't have empathy. Empathy is vulnerability, and you're thinking in your head like, this is him cracking. He's trying to remind himself because he's gonna crack.
Yeah,
and then,
he does not.
He does
Her
not.
neck does as he breaks it, and she falls down. But that was so incredible, and kudos to that actress. She was so good.
Yeah,
and I loved when she was like, when he goes back after the guy dies from the nail. This whole sequence is insane and incredible. Guy dies from the nail gun. Mm-hmm. One of the I don't want to use the word coolest, I guess, because a guy gets a nail gun to the chest. But that scene was incredible.
Yeah.
He goes into the bathroom, and I love how she's like, look, I know how this is going to turn out for me. And then I'm paraphrasing. This is not word for word. And she really kind of a heartbreaking almost, where she's like, I want my kids to be able to get my insurance money. Please don't make me disappear.
Right.
I was like, oh my gosh. And then he does actually, that's the most sympathy he shows. Yeah. Even in killing someone, because he does leave it to where he does kind of follow her wishes.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's almost endearing that he's like, the way when he kills her, you're almost like, it was kind of sweet because he surprised her. He did it quick and he did what she wanted, so he made it look like an accident, like she fell down the stairs and broke.
What a swell guy!
Yeah. As far, yeah.
Which shows you how dark Fincher is when you're like, you know what, that was actually kind of nice of that guy to break her neck and let her tumble down the stairs. She was great. That was great. It was
great. Which I had never seen her before or anything. There's, first off, very few actors.
Not a lot of recognizable faces.
And yeah, outside of, I mean, I was kind of doing it in the credits. Again, not knowing anything about the movie, it goes, starring Michael Fassbender, and I'm reading all the rest of the names, and I'm going,
they meant nothing to me. And I know quite a few actors.
Yeah.
The guy shot with the nail gun, I know, he was in Top Gun Maverick.
I'd say I've seen, he's a that guy.
He's a that guy, yeah.
The guy who played the rich guy at the end, he was a little bit of a that guy too. I'm like, I know I've seen things. And of course, Tilda Swinton. She's the other name
of course,
that I knew, but literally no recognition of anybody else in the movie.
And you don't see her at all, do you, till that end scene, right?
Right. She's
that's the first time
scene.
Yeah,
and she's like second billing, probably.
But it's almost really like a cameo more than anything, even though she's got the billing.
Well, I'd say, I mean, honestly, besides Fassbender, I don't know that anybody's in more than one scene.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
So,
yep.
Let's talk about Fassbender.
Oh yeah,
because a couple things. One, I was reading the trivia. I did not realize that this was his first film in 4 years.
Well, I guess I didn't think about that either.
He did The Dark Phoenix, which came out in 2019, the X-Men movie.
Yeah.
And he hadn't been in a movie since then.
Wow.
And I was like, that's crazy. And I was like, I'm sure there's a reason. I looked up why. And it was basically like, from the article I read, he had a stream of movies that were all just didn't do well. They weren't very good movies.
Yeah.
And apparently he's really big into racing as a hobby. So he kind of just like, I'm going to take a few years and just focus on racing.
Interesting.
So he's car racing. And then I think he'd been waiting for just the right movie to try to get back into it.
This was the right movie for him because he was phenomenal.
I think great decision.
I do too. Best actor nominee, you think?
I think there's a good chance.
I think there's a good chance.
It's starting to be shouldn't say crowded, but I think we're starting to see, it's going to be Cillian Murphy, it's going to be DiCaprio, it's going to be.
I think you can throw Fassbender, yeah.
I think are all
for sure
pretty solid locks.
I think so too.
In the best actor conversation. But here's another bit of trivia. In 2008, because this has been a passion project of Fincher's for 20 years.
Yes.
Which, again, my feelings about it. I always get nervous when I hear passion
project. That's one of your best theories. Usually passion project means really dull, boring movie.
Yeah. And there was, like I said, at the beginning of the movie, I had a moment where I thought,
yeah.
Here's his passion project is to show a movie of a guy sitting in a room waiting on a shot
I had the same
for 2 hours. But actually, this one panned out.
It did.
But in 2008, Fincher originally thought of Brad Pitt for the role of the killer.
I think that would have been amazing.
But Pitt apparently said it was a little too nihilistic for him. Just a
Whoa.
little too dark for him.
From the guy who was in Seven.
Yeah. But you know what? I read that and my thoughts were exactly the same. I was like, man, Pitt would be awesome because I just love Pitt. He's probably my favorite.
Yep.
But then I thought, you know what? I actually think he would have been wrong for the part. I think Fassbender.
A little distracting to have Pitt, maybe.
I think the thing about Fassbender is, Pitt's a little too Hollywood handsome.
Yep.
He's a little too charismatic just naturally. And Fassbender, not that he's not a good-looking guy, because he can play that.
Right.
But I was like, this dude is just perfect for like
blends in better.
Like when he just throws on his cap and jacket and
But yet at the same time, believable when he's having this really brutal fight with the guy in the house.
Yeah, and the other thing is, Fassbender has a way of playing somebody who's just sort of cold and detached.
Yep.
Like he can play that sort of blank, like
that's a really good point.
Calculated and cold.
Brad Pitt is so charismatic.
Yeah.
I think it would have been a very conscious effort on his part to eliminate all that charisma.
Yeah.
Whereas Fassbender, I think, can do it a little bit more naturally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought he was great. He did a great job.
Yeah, and he's somebody who I've always heard is a very committed actor.
Mm-hmm.
Like he really commits to things, even in things that are bad. Like I remember hearing about his commitment in the Assassin's Creed movie, and it's like that movie was garbage.
Yeah.
But
he's like, I'm all in.
He goes all in, and I'm like, so I read him and Fincher sat down and talked about this movie, and Fincher was like, could tell when like how committed Fassbender seemed to doing it. And he was like, okay, this is my guy.
Yeah.
Of course, as I said, Fincher's obsessive too. So when he saw somebody who was going to be that committed to his level, he probably just had to find his right match.
Probably. I didn't think there was any part in the movie where Fassbender went wrong. No. Or I was like, all right, Fassbender, that was okay. He was rock solid that whole movie.
Yeah, really, really good performance, and he's been really good in a lot of things. I actually was sitting there thinking while I was watching it, I was like, Fassbender's one of those actors that he's got a couple of great movies. Mm-hmm. He was great in Inglourious Basterds.
Yes, he was.
He was great in Steve Jobs.
Yep.
But I felt he's got more bad than good for such a good actor.
Well, he was in 2 or 3 of the X-Men movies, and those are okay or whatever, but yeah.
But and then the Assassin's Creed movies and the Snowman, which is a movie I never saw. It was
I remember it was like an
really
8% on Rotten Tomatoes. It was, people despised that movie.
And I think probably the thing about Fassbender is he seems like a guy who's, you wouldn't know it for this movie. I think he seems like kind of a fun, cool guy. He's kind of I'm game for things that are different and fun, and probably gets him in trouble in picking these bad roles. Could be. But when he gets a role like this and he's I'm game, it really pays off.
He's also got the thing where I know who he is. I know about his movies. I can't remember off the top of my head though. Is he American? Is he? Yeah. You can tell me he's American. You can tell me he's Australian. You can tell me he's British, and I'd believe all of them. I don't remember, and I think stuff like that lends itself to a movie like this where he's just supposed to be I'm just a guy, and you're going to forget about me as soon as I don't remember what nationality he is.
Well, and even going back to not just that, where is he from? If you had to describe him to a sketch artist, he's in every way just kind of a very
That's a good point.
Indistinct. Again, going back to Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt has a very movie star square jaw type thing. Yeah. If you see Brad Pitt, you can describe Brad Pitt. I'm just even now, if I'm describe Fassbender, is there anything distinct about his features? No, they're all just sort of just normal.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Nothing wrong with him. Mm-hmm. He can play handsome very well, I'm sure. But he's just nothing's that distinct about his look.
He was great. I really hope he does get recognized. I don't think he'll win. It's Cillian Murphy's year, I think. I'd be shocked if anyone came in and took that from him, but hope he gets a nomination.
Yeah. So in the movie, we talked about not knowing his character's name, but one of the ongoing bits was that every time he registered or checked in somewhere, he had a different ID. It was a different character's name. I noticed from the first name that was given was Felix Unger.
Yes.
In The Odd Couple. So I'm going to run through these. This again from the trivia. His names he used, or aliases he used: Felix Unger from The Odd Couple, Archibald Bunker from All in the Family, Oscar Madison from The Odd Couple, Howard Cunningham from Happy Days, Reuben Kincaid from The Partridge Family, Lou Grant from Mary Tyler Moore Show / Lou Grant, Sam Malone from Cheers, George Jefferson from The Jeffersons, Robert Hartley from The Bob Newhart Show.
Yep.
From Felix Unger, when I saw that one, I was like, that's a name that's from something, but I didn't know what. Then I saw Archibald Bunker, I was like, that's the On the Family guy. And then I was paying attention to all the names.
That made me laugh too.
And I'll say this, I really only knew 3 of them, what they were from.
Yeah.
Archibald Bunker, Sam Malone from Cheers, and George Jefferson from The Jeffersons. But I kept waiting for the point in the movie where one person would be like, oh, the such and such, just for him to recognize it and him to have to play it off oh, yeah, I get that all the time or something.
I think, that worked to me because I was thinking boy, I'm surprised Fincher is going for this almost kind of this broad of comedy just with the names. But I was thinking it probably checks out because if you're under a certain age, those names don't mean anything to you.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Nothing.
I picked out 3, and the first one sounded familiar, but I couldn't place it.
I mean, that would mean nothing to my kids,
right?
Those names. I mean, so it works on both levels, I guess. It works if you know who those characters are, and then it's kind of a funny joke, just constantly a different name. So it's double effective, but
yeah. Did you pick up on it?
I did.
Pretty immediately. I mean, obviously, as it goes on, it starts to become more and more obvious.
Apparent. I picked up on it right from the beginning, not because I'm. Yeah. I knew that name, and then I picked up on it.
Yeah. Yeah. So one of the other things that was really compelling to me, looking behind the scenes of this movie, was that its budget was $175 million.
Really? I didn't know that.
That shocked me a lot. I'm like,
if you would have told me $50 million, I would have believed that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm like, has inflation happened so much that that's what this movie cost?
Well, but Killers of the Flower Moon's $200 million movie.
I know. But, even with that one, I thought, okay, 3.5-hour runtime, all the sets, the
DiCaprio.
Many more big actors, big names. This one, again, Fassbender's the only one who's heavily in it.
Yeah, wow, I'm shocked by that.
I know, I don't mean this to say the movie doesn't look great or anything. I watch it and go where did the
175? I agree with you completely.
Here's the thing. He's only crossed the 100 million threshold one other time for a budget. Mm-hmm. Curious Case of Benjamin Button was 167 million because so much CGI and effects with the aging stuff. Besides that, his next most expensive movie was 90 million, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Mm-hmm. Gone Girl was 61 million. Social Network was 40 million.
Yeah.
And nothing I watch in this movie goes when I watch Social Network, I go man, great movie, $40 million. I get it. If you would have told me this one was also $40 million, I
would have guessed way more in that range.
And
I'm like you. It sounds like it. I mean it as a criticism of the movie. I don't.
No.
But I'm like, where is the 175 million at? I mean, his movies look, like you said at the top of the pod, his movies look gorgeous and amazing, but $175 million. Holy cow.
My only guess for why it's even more than 40 is
all the different locations.
They must have done a lot of on location, in the actual place and sort of stuff. Because other than that, again, there's no big special effects scene. There's no
explosions.
Cast.
There's no. I mean, he sets the one dude's house on fire, but there's not the big. I don't know. That's crazy to me.
I'm blown away. I need to see a breakdown somewhere of this is where all the money went, because 175 million just. His previous one with Netflix was made for 25 million.
25 million, I know.
Yeah, so this is literally 6 times or 7 times the amount.
I don't mean to turn negative all of a sudden because I love this movie. I love Fincher, but it's probably a separate pod. That is one of my pet peeves in Hollywood, where just these budgets are insane.
Yeah,
these movies have to make so much money to be even talk about being profitable. But I digress.
I sit there watching and go it makes me wonder if, there's some kind of chicanery in the deal where Fincher goes, I need, in my 4-picture deal, this much budget across 4 movies. And then when he spent $25 million with Mank, he was like,
I've got a lot of extra spending money.
I spent $200 million on my first 2 movies because if you put those 2 together, it's $200 million.
That's crazy. I'm like you. I'm going to go home and research that a little bit because that's crazy.
Yeah, it just blows my mind. 7 was a $30 million movie. Now, granted, 7 came out in 95. That's so many years ago. But just show the change in movie budgets.
Oh my gosh! What was Gone Girl? Do you know what was the budget?
Gone Girl was 61 million.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously much
2014, not even 10 years ago. But I would have said The Killer and Gone Girl have to have comparable budgets.
Yeah.
There's nothing in The Killer that
I wouldn't think it'd be that far out of proportion.
Yeah, over.
That's wild.
It's almost tripled.
That is wild.
Yeah, that is.
It's like a Marvel movie budget.
It really is, and it's not a Marvel movie at all.
No.
All right. So, any final thoughts on?
No, I mean, so I kind of just like I said, I went through and I was writing notes as the movie progressed. I think we hit it all. A couple things I wanted to point out that just didn't really fit into our conversation. I do like when movies have chapters. Mm-hmm. I just like that. Tarantino does it in the Kill Bill movies. He does it in a lot of his movies, I guess. So I was excited when this one started out, and I could see that Fincher was going to do the chapter gimmick. I like that.
And we should probably point out that this was based on a graphic novel.
Yes.
Which I'm not familiar with at all, but
me neither.
I imagine it's probably laid out.
Yep. So I thought that was cool. Yeah. I was a little nervous when you realize pretty early in the movie it's going to be a narration-heavy movie. I think that can go really good. I think Scorsese's the king of it, but I think it can also go bad sometimes. Either it turns into a gimmick to explain things that they couldn't figure out how to explain it any other way, or you're just kind of like, okay. But I thought it worked in, here. I thought it was really good. And this is very random, but it's just something I wrote down because I loved it. It was in the beginning, in the first chapter. Fassbender is standing in the window, looking across the street, kind of surveying the neighborhood, and the music is playing when it's the outside shots. But then when it cuts back into Fassbender, you're just hearing the music like he is hearing it through his headphones.
Yeah.
I just thought that was really cool. I don't really have anything else to say about it or what it meant or, what Fincher had in mind other than I was like, well, that's cool. And I think it was smart, because that first 10, 15 minutes is slow. So for him to pull out those little tricks like that, kept my interest up. I thought that was a cool scene.
You mentioned Scorsese, and I think when I was watching it, I was like, Fincher really is to me sort of the I don't even know how to say it. He's like the second, not second coming. That sounds so like I'm using a religious term, but he's really like
a modern day Scorsese.
Like a modern day Scorsese, maybe would say, which is funny to say because Scorsese's still working, so he's also the modern day Scorsese. But what I mean is,
I know what you mean.
There's so many similarities, I think, between the two of them in their craft, but also just they both thrive in the world of like sort of dark, disturbed,
they do
material.
They seem so comfortable in these dark worlds.
They both don't mind, having their protagonist be a completely unlikable character or the bad guy.
Completely.
So I'm watching going like, you got Scorsese just did Killers of the Flower Moon, where the main characters you're following are the villains who are assassinating the Osage people and like have this whole plot to like get their land rights from them. And then this movie is following a contract killer who, the best thing you could say about him is, well, I guess at least for most of the movie he's taking out other bad guys.
Right.
But just not because it's the right thing to do, just because he's mad at them because they were coming after him.
Right. I think you have to be a really confident filmmaker to be comfortable enough making a movie where there's very few, if any, likable characters.
Yeah.
You're not afraid to take that safety net completely out of the picture and just be like, all right, you're going to spend your next 2 or, in the case of Killers of the Flower Moon, 3.5 hours with almost all unlikable characters doing bad things.
Yeah. And just like with Killers of the Flower Moon, we talked about with that one, how there's so many opportunities where you could have done the more maybe cinematic thing or the thing that the audience would have cheered for a little more. You stuck to what's real. And
they're like, that's not true to the movie I'm making.
And that's what Fincher did, again, going back to the lady, the secretary, who you build so much like compassion for, and you're like, maybe he'll let her go, and like maybe the cinematic thing would have been like that he, says, I'm going to let you go because I'm about to be out of this business and on the run for the rest of my life anyways, so you're the exception I'll make, but he doesn't.
No, he does not.
Honestly, by the end, as it gets to the last guy, you're kind of like, kill this guy, like, and it's all over.
And then he doesn't.
And he doesn't, and you're kind of like, you're just never going to give me what I want.
No.
But it's probably what would happen.
Yep. And then the only other thing I had written down that I don't think we really talked about, or I know we didn't talk about, I wrote, this movie to me was like a first cousin to No Country for Old Men.
Yeah.
Just because No Country for Old Men is also just a lot about, like, I think of like the scene where Javier Bardem, when he's been injured and he like fixes himself, like basically like performs, like surgery on himself. And that whole scene is just all about process. And like he's boiling the tweezers to dig out the shrapnel from his leg. He gives himself the shot. And it's just very slow. There's no music playing. And it's just, and this movie, they're different subject matter, but it's just like, you're just going to live in this world with this person. Yeah. And of course the crime and all that stuff.
No, that's a very good call. The process, even Josh Brolin's character, I think is it Llewellyn or something?
Llewellyn Moss, yeah.
In the hotel when he's dealing with the
he rigs that thing up to
I saw a video recently that was pointed out. There's a point where he closes the blinds or closes the shades, whatever it is, the curtains. He closes the curtains, and when he's coming back, he's got the 2 rooms and the curtains slightly open, and he says, "Keep driving." And like again, a movie showing and not telling, like he's just noticed a change, and it's like those little details in the professional approach, and like
the 2 movies reminded me a lot of each other in a good way because I love No Country for Old Men.
And again, the word that comes up for both of them is that is nihilism, which nihilism is that sort of nothing ultimately matters.
Yeah.
And, the darkness that sort of comes from that belief or mentality. Yeah. And that's definitely on full display in both movies.
Yeah, I had No Country for Old Men on my mind throughout the whole movie. Through the whole movie, The Killers, so.
Yeah. Well,
but yeah, big thumbs up from me.
Yeah. And again, knowing full well this movie's not going to be for everybody.
Things
that we've said, it's dark, it's nihilistic, the character is not going to be one you're going to want to root for. But if you're okay with all those things, if you just like a movie that's incredibly well made, feels very real, feels tense.
Oh yeah.
And again, my favorite thing in a movie or TV show is smartest person in the room, or just person who's excellent at their job. I'm like you. I just can't help but watch and be like, man, like really smart things he's doing along the way.
Yeah.
And I'm here for it.
Me too. Yeah. Oh yeah. Definitely not for everybody. I can see a lot of people giving up 5 minutes into this movie and just being like, all right, next thing. Yeah. But stick it out. Give it a chance. I think you'll really like it. Yeah. And I just want to say one more time, the nail gun scene. Just incredible. For such a dark, violent scene, that was amazing. So.
About the moment in the elevator.
Oh my gosh.
And the guy goes,
need help disposing of that dead body.
And the lady, just the awkward tension.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that was probably my favorite stretch of the movie.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable.
Yeah.
That and then the fight in the guy's house.
Really good. Well, before we wrap up, I threw a question your direction that I didn't really give you time.
So mad that I didn't think about that.
Ample time to think about. I also didn't have ample time to think about it because I thought of it just before we started filming. But this movie obviously about a contract killer, about a hitman.
Yeah.
And we said hitman is always good material for a movie. It's just tends to work.
Yep.
What are some, when you think of movie hitmen, who comes to mind?
So immediately, before we started rolling, I was like, oh, I'm going to Google that. Before I even Googled it, the very first thing that came to my mind was Cruise and Collateral.
Yep.
I mean,
top of my list.
Top of my list for sure. Travolta and Sam Jackson in Pulp Fiction came to mind. Just not necessarily from how great they were at their job, because that has some of the same things where like Travolta really blows it in that movie and is not really good at his job.
Quite literally blows the guy off on accident.
Yeah. So they came to mind. Uma Thurman from Pulp Fiction. I consider her a contract killer.
Okay.
Even though I'm sorry, not Pulp Fiction, in Kill Bill. I'm sorry. Kill Bill, I consider her.
She was.
Even though when we're meeting her in the movie, she's more on her revenge, but she, Clemenza from The Godfather.
Okay.
He does a couple hits in The Godfather, going back old school. But and I would also put Javier Bardem from No Country on my list.
I was going to say, you brought up No Country for Old Men. Yeah. His character, Anton Chigurh.
Yeah. I'd say easily one of the top 10 greatest movie characters of all time, or most memorable at least.
And a lot of great behind-the-scenes stories of that one, too. Just with him not speaking enough English, so he didn't know what was going on in half the scenes.
Oh my gosh.
Him feeling like he really hated the wig they had him wearing. He's like, I look really stupid. And they're like, you're gonna look, it's gonna be memorable. It's gonna work. It's gonna be great. Just unbelievable. He has the most ridiculous haircut in movie history.
Yeah, and he's so scary in that movie and so good. But the very first thing that popped to my mind was Cruise from Collateral.
Yeah, I think he's probably sort of the gold standard.
Yeah.
Of course, you've got, I did the same thing. I kind of Googled it. You got your John Wick.
Yeah.
He's famous hitman, but he's really not doing much hitman things. It's more like, again, he's the retired hitman who's just getting revenge on the people who came after him, so you don't really see it. Jason Bourne's another one who was a hitman, but like in the Bourne movies, he's not doing hits.
A lot of movies are about like hitmen, and they're like, I told you I was getting out of this, and then they're sucked back in.
Right.
Even like Kill Bill is kind of like that.
Grosse Point Blank.
Yeah.
It's
John Cusack.
A comedic version of it where, he's a hitman going to a high school reunion, and he's wanting to get out of the business. But
it's actually kind of a sneaky good movie.
That's definitely that'd be a great one for the rewatchables. It's a rewatchable movie.
Bruce Willis was a hitman once in a movie with him and Richard Gere. The Jackal.
Oh yeah. Jackal. Very memorable scene with Jack Black in that movie.
Blows his hand off or his arm or something. I saw that movie like 20 years ago. I haven't seen it since, but I just remember that.
Yeah, no, that was. You're right. That was one. I don't think it's a great movie, but it was a good depiction of a hitman being like methodical with things, kind of like this. I remember scenes of him like he painted a van several times over so that every time he moved somewhere or like did something, he could like take off a layer and have a different color van. That was memorable. So that's just a couple of the. Yeah,
I'm sure there's. If we had more time, we could probably.
We'll think of one later and go like, oh, how could I not?
Forgot like the most obvious one.
Yeah, such a good one. But overall, killer, solid, good movie.
Good movie.
It's just nice to have good movies coming out, and hopefully more good movies will be coming out because the strike.
It's ended since we last.
It ended. Yep, we hopefully won't have any more bad news of movies being delayed.
I don't think
being put off.
I know for your sake you're happy that it doesn't look like Dune will get delayed again. Right. So it looks like they'll stick to that March release date.
Dune in March. We'll hopefully get the next Mission Impossible installment.
Yes, because it was supposed to be like a whole year. I hope they'll stick with trying to do that in the next year or so. So I do want to ask you real quick as we wrap up, did this crack any kind of like, a top 3 for Fincher, or where is this upper level Fincher for you? Or
I don't think it is, which is, again, not an insult to the movie.
No, because he's made some great movies.
Such great movies. It's possible, again, given time, that it will grow on me because, again, most of Fincher's movies I like more over time than even my initial viewing. The Social Network, which I say is my favorite movie, I didn't watch and then immediately go, this is my favorite movie of all time. It's more just like I kept rewatching, going like, I never get tired of this movie. I think it might be my favorite, and that's what happened with it. So right now I say no, but given time, it could grow.
Could change. You're open to it cracking that upper list?
I don't think it will, though. I'll just say that. I don't think it will, again, because he's made really, really good movies, and I really like and respect this movie. It is, I think, simple and straightforward enough, though, that like I don't think it's over time going to be more and more to chew on and digest.
No, it's not a deep movie, I wouldn't say.
Yeah.
But it's definitely, I don't know. I'm looking at his list. I mean, Seven and Zodiac they're going to be really hard to knock off the top for me, but it's definitely at the worst, mid to upper to me. I mean, definitely beats like Benjamin Button.
It beats Benjamin Button. It beats Mank. Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, which is good, but just
it's not a pleasant movie to watch.
It's so unpleasant.
It's so like gritty and violent.
I've only watched it once, and I keep thinking like I need to rewatch it sometime because again, I tend to like Fincher movies more the more I watch them. But
I liked it more than The Game.
The Game is. Again, I really like it, but I don't know how much I'll revisit it.
Yeah, I think I like this more than The Game. Yeah. I think of this as like kind of like in that same level as Panic Room.
Yeah.
To me, where it's like Panic Room is just a really good movie. Yeah. It's not going to be my favorite movie of all time or anything, but it's reminded me of that just as far as like how I felt about it, how much I liked it.
And share some things in common. Like Panic Room is a simple movie. Mm-hmm. It's very limited cast.
Yep.
Very limited location, obviously, and it's Fincher just going like, I'm going to do a lot with a little.
And I'm going to do it really well, and this kind of sits in the Panic Room category for me. So but he's definitely a filmmaker I want to keep following. I'm already like, okay, I'd like to know what his next project is going to be, even if it doesn't come out for 3 or 4 years.
Well, and we know that he's got 2 more on his Netflix deal because it was a 4 movie deal with Netflix, so... he's got Mank and The Killer in the books now, and 2 more to come.
You never know what's going to draw him. Yeah. Like Mank is one where it's like, man, I don't know. He might go, he might stay in the dark, gritty, violent world. He might go out of that world. You just never know for him.
Yeah.
So,
I still think The Social Network is the most like outside the normal Fincher box movie that he's done. Because even Mank, as weird as it is, that has personal connections. It's like his dad wrote the original screenplay, and like it's old Hollywood that he's obsessed
the one
with.
That's always so weird to me is Benjamin Button. I don't think I'll ever understand what drew him to that.
Again, I'm pretty sure that was one of those one for them, one for me. Like he had to do that movie for them to give him what he wanted to do. Yeah. Maybe Zodiac. which came out a year before, but I think it might have been like I'll do your Benjamin Button if you let me do Zodiac type deal.
What a year when we got a Fincher, a Nolan, and a Scorsese movie.
Yeah.
That's a win right there.
It is. And again, sure, all three of them will be nominated heavily at the...
I think this podcast over the last few weeks has convinced me to watch the Oscars this year.
Yeah. Of course, you never know. You know, maybe
they may blow it, and they may just not.
Yeah. And we might be looking back at this. Will be one of those years where something silly wins, and we'll be going, can you believe 2023?
In a year when we had a Scorsese, Fincher, and Nolan.
You know, something silly beat Oppenheimer, Killers of the Flower Moon, and The Killer.
I'm just glad we have some good things to talk about because, you know, which we can save for another podcast, but my beloved Marvel franchise is, they took their first big loss today. So we can get into that, I guess, maybe in another podcast. So I'm glad that good movies are coming out because it does feel like, I think superhero fatigue is officially a thing.
Yeah.
All
right. Well, that'll do it for this week.
Good conversation. I was excited to talk to you about this movie.
Come and join us next week. Next week, I'm going to have to go throw away my hat.
That's right.
My jacket.
I was going to say, when we leave here, I'm going to just strategically throw all my belongings away between here and my house.
Exactly. So, and then we'll retire to our mansions in Dominican Republic.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to do when I leave here, actually, is go back to my mansion in the Dominican. So hopefully I'll be back next week for the pod.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us.
We'll see you next week.